Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Product in LA podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Cole, and this is the first episode, so thank you for joining us. This is really an opportunity to shine the spotlight on some of the exceptional product leaders we have here as part of the LA product community. And with us today is Kevin Sakamoto.
Hey, Ethan.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. First, I just want to thank our sponsors. This is brought to you by the Product Managers Association of Los Angeles. Product Managers Association of Los Angeles is 2,000 of LA's top product talent. It is the largest professional organization in the area, and among other things, including live meetup events, they put on a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented populations to help build a more robust and diverse next generation of product people. For more information, please go to pma.la. Today, we are speaking with Kevin Sakamoto. He's the Senior Director of Product Management at Dollar Shave Club. His past roles have included time at Zappos, Target, Lululemon, and ADP. And interesting fact about Kevin is he's currently working on a PhD.
Trying my very best.
I'm sure you'll get it. Perseverance is absolutely key in getting that accomplishing that PhD. So thank you so much again for joining us today, Kevin.
It's a thrill. Thank you for having me on, Ethan. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And with this show, product management is such a hard field to break into. There really wasn't formal training for it previous to, up to a couple of years ago. Now there are some MBAs that are directed towards product, but for most of the working people out there, they had to get in one way or another. Kevin, love to learn more about your journey into product management.
Yeah, happy to share that. It's actually been a bit of a wild ride, to be completely honest. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and the reason why I say that is that's where I kind of got my first taste of product, even though I didn't know it at the time. I was at the time of the website manager for Bank of Hawaii, which is, depending on who you talk to, Hawaii's largest or second largest bank. And I was responsible for the entire website. The design, features, functionality, security, privacy, everything about it. And then we got a new senior vice president who came from the continent. He came back home from Hawaii, and he says, you're actually doing what we call product management, because he spent some time in Silicon Valley. So I said, okay, well, fine. So he changed my title to product manager of Bank of Hawaii, and I thought nothing of it. And then one day I was listening to podcasts. This is way back in 2006, if I recall correctly. So I was listening to podcasts ever since then. And then on one episode of this tech podcast that I listened to, they were interviewing Tony Hsieh, the late founder of Zappos.com. And he was telling the story about how one of their employees made a pricing error in their system, and it ended up costing the company $1.5 million because everything was priced at $49.99 or less. And then Zappos honored that price. They said it was their mistake, and that employee was actually celebrated. They said, look, we found this because of her. We found this mistake in our system. It was a bad UI. We learned from it, and that's how we are here at Zappos, right? We celebrate learnings. And I told myself at the time, I need to work for that company. I just need to find a way to get there. So as the months went on, I just would, every month I would look at Zappos' website to see if there's a product manager opening. One opened up for product manager of Zappos.com. I applied. Miraculously, I was selected. So I think I was product manager number 4 at the time at Zappos, and this was a couple of years after the Amazon acquisition. And I was responsible for all of Zappos. And from that point on, it's just been, like I said, a really, really fun ride going from there to Target, Lululemon, ADP, and now here at Dollar Shave Club.
Wow. So it sounds like you kind of just naturally were inclined towards it without really knowing what it was. And the opportunity presented itself to you to do product things, but it was just a natural state of mind. You couldn't help yourself from doing it.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by technology. And you can imagine being responsible for a website back in 2007 when the iPhone was first coming out. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like such a long time ago, right? And so there's that one aspect, and then there's just the other side of being perpetually curious. Again, listening to podcasts way back then, that wasn't even a thing. Like there was just that one podcast that I would listen to every day, and this tech podcast. It was called Buzz Out Loud, by the way. If anyone is interested, you can search it up on Wikipedia. And yeah, just being naturally curious and wanting to learn things and really understand the basics of technology, the basics of design, e-commerce behavior. I just sort of, as fate and luck would have it, sort of fell into it, and that's how I ended up, at Zappos in 2011.
And how would you say, actually, how do you do product management today? And then we'll talk about the bridge in between. How is it different between now and different roles? But fast forwarding now to Kevin Sakamoto at Dollar Shave Club, what does product look like to you today?
Yeah, that's a great question, and honestly, I think a lot of it is the same but different. I guess the best way to think about it is, think about the cars that you drove back in 2007, right? And then look at the cars that you're driving today. The basic mechanics of driving the car is the same, right? The rules are still pretty much the same. Red light, green light, yellow, stop for pedestrians, all those things. But then now things have changed so much, right? The how you drive is different. How your car interfaces with the outside world, is different. So that's why I say that if you just look at the stark differences from when I first started my product career to what it is now, the basic mechanics are the same, but then how I interact with not only my vehicle, my technology, my platform, but also how I interact with my customers and my stakeholders, how I get information, right, is completely different than what it was when I first started.
Do you have an example of, some of the benefits of, things that have come out recently? Because back in 2007, I was driving a 2004 Honda Civic with a stick shift. So I read they're not even going to start doing those anymore. So things are very different. But what for you has changed for the better? What's improved to make product management easier, or not, maybe not easier, but more effective for being the voice of the customer?
Yeah. Well, I'm with you, Ethan. I learned how to drive on a stick shift. So if I ever win the lottery, I'm going to buy myself my own little stick shift and just use it as a, car to go run groceries or something like that. What's changed? The tools, definitely the tools. Back then we didn't have Confluence, we didn't have Jira. Things are much more efficient now than they were before. And as I'm saying this, I sound like such a dinosaur now. I feel like, okay, boomer, you can stop this podcast now. So definitely one, the tools, and then the access to customers. Again, back in the day, we didn't have things like usertesting.com. We didn't have that ability to just get some customer feedback within a few hours, and have it be great feedback, and have that feedback, guide us and inform us on whether or not this idea for an A/B test is something we want to do. So that's just off the top of my head, those are the real two big differences from before and today.
And have you seen any of the impact of maybe consumers getting smarter? Because just thinking back at people in general, pre-iPhone to today, just the amount of literacy, of digital literacy, is astounding today. And even if they don't know, how the applications actually run, the fact that, I have a great uncle who's using his iPhone to watch movies, whereas in the past, a phone was a thing that lived in the kitchen wall for him. How have you seen the impact of product management on the change of customers and between, your days at Zappos and today at Dollar Shave Club?
Oh yeah, everything happens so much faster now. Um, before at Zappos, one of the things that I really loved about Zappos was the connection that we had to the customers. So every holiday season, we had to do something called Holiday Helper, where we serve a total of 10 hours over the course of a few weeks, on the phones, side by side with our customer service folks. And we'd help our customers, we'd send them packages, we'd help them find products at other stores and other competitors, right? All in the service of providing exceptional customer service. And then those of us in tech, we love that. We love that time with our customers, and there'd be countless stories of some engineer or coming back from a 2-hour shift during Holiday Helper, and she's telling everyone about the story of how she had this customer, and how she had this issue with the website, and 6 hours later she'd have a prototype of some feature, to solve that problem. So nowadays it's just so much faster, where you can develop these things, and you can get these things out for testing, to test it out for the customer. Sorry, my computer just blinked out for a moment, so had to make sure everything is up and running. So yeah, I think those are the speed, is different. And then the other side too is one thing I don't think companies, at least those that I'm familiar with, are good at yet, is responding to that speed. Everything happens so quickly. You hear about things that are trending on TikTok, and by the time some company decides, hey, let's take advantage of this, it's already old hat. So what I think, in my very humble opinion, is that now more than ever, product managers are needed, product management teams are needed, because if they're plugged into the ecosystem and they're seeing these things and these trends that are happening, at 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, they can, because of the tools and that are available, draft up a prototype, put together some wireframes, start the stand up first thing in the morning to say, what if we did this? And then by the end of the day, have a prototype they could push out and test it with their customers. Whereas, we're still, I think a lot of companies are being held back by saying, well, we need to check with marketing. Let's write up a brief. Let's do all these things. Let's do that formality, versus let's just test something out and see what happens.
It's interesting, in continuing on this pre-iPhone world versus the world of today. Feels like the news cycle and just kind of just products, people's cycles in general have sped up. Thinking back to how one would get the news, and even in 2007, I guess sometimes people would go to a website, but there weren't any push notifications to phones really at that point. There weren't really apps that were dedicated. There were no apps, so there weren't any apps that were dedicated to news. More often than not, people would get news from maybe the local television or national news, and maybe the super tech literate would have CNN.com, someplace they would frequently go. But today it's just the need for immediacy. And to your point, something can be a flash in a pan, and a flash in a pan, used to be 15 minutes of fame. These days it feels more like 15 seconds or 5 seconds. And if you're not attacking that moment in the moment, if you're not pushing product out quickly, you could very well put out something that is now obsolete even by a couple days or weeks.
Right. And we have, if you think about it, we have the necessary technology to respond to that. What was the latest thing last week? The Choco Taco.
Yeah.
And then that some companies are, oh, should we do some sort of campaign? Should we do something, or but it's already too late already. It was a thing for a couple days, a few days, and now it's gone. But if a product team wanted to run some sort of special Choco Taco campaign on their website, or just have a little fun with it, type in Choco Taco in our search bar and you get some sort of free coupon or something like that, right? That capability exists, so that the technology is there. And I think it's just a matter of that philosophy of product where we need to empower our product teams to go after that, to try and test and learn to see what happens.
That's great. And I guess along the same line of testing and learning, sometimes maybe by failure, um, can you speak to one of what would you call the most important lesson you've learned over the course of your product career, related to product or not? What is what's the key? What was the key learning
Oh my
in
gosh.
your development?
I have a lot of battle scars. So um and that's the thing. And I definitely don't want this to be, to your listeners, just me talking stories about the good old days. So, I'll maybe share one. Let's, if it's something you're interested in discussing further, we can definitely do that. But one thing I learned, and I should say too, you learn different things along the way, right? So you asked earlier about who I was at Zappos and who I am today. It's very different. Um, One of the things I learned is the importance of just being humble and transparent. And I'll tell you a story of an A/B test I did at Lululemon, and this is again related to having the autonomy to do stuff. So what I noticed, as any good product manager should do, right? She should be looking at the data. And what I noticed about Lululemon was a large percentage of the electronic gift card sales, the EGC sales, happened during the week of Christmas. And this was panicked boyfriends and husbands realizing they didn't, get the gift. So they would go and buy an electronic gift card. And I looked into the data after that, and I saw that there were certain denominations, right, that were selected or purchased more than others. And I thought, I'm going to run an A/B test on the homepage during the holiday season. And I don't know about you or your listeners, but usually running any sort of A/B tests on an e-commerce site during the holiday season is taboo. Like that never happens before, right? So I thankfully I was in a position where I could do that. I did have to check with our VP of engineering and let him know, here's what I wanted to do. So I put right on the homepage a little module that had, there's still time, purchase an electronic gift card, and there were, I think, 3 or 4 options. So we ran a multivariate test, no less, where there was one version where those options, those radio buttons were, there were none selected, one where there was defaulted to the most popular one, another that was defaulted to a higher, version. And what we found after just the first day was that the one that was defaulted to the most popular, historically popular value was winning. So we ramped down the other versions. We ramped up this version. I think we exposed it to 90% of the traffic because we started very low because it was during the holiday season. And it was a huge success. We sold an excessive amount of electronic gift cards at the time. So I then, during our all hands, I think our January all hands, in front of everyone, I told them about the story, how this was a test and how it was a huge success. And we're now going to take this learning and apply it to Lunar New Year in our Hong Kong site, saying that we're going to use auspicious colors, we're going to use auspicious numbers, to be culturally aligned with the year. And I said, it's going to be great. Flash forward a month later, we ran the test, and that particular test got 2 clicks and 0 sales. And I had to then go in front of all hands again, right? More than 100 people, and tell them about this test. And, I said, remember that test I said was going to be great? Well, we got 2 clicks and 0 sales, and the room was silent. I said, but that's okay. Like we learned something with very little investment, right? We learned that our Hong Kong, customers, people that are accessing our website there, they don't go to the website during Lunar New Year. It's just not part of their thing. And what we did find was that they're very active in WeChat and their super app platforms, and that's where all of the Lunar New Year activity is. And this test costed us only 2 hours of additional work. So it really costed us nothing, to have all this great information. And as a result of that, that kicked off a new strategy for e-commerce within our Hong Kong ecosystem. So it's being humble to go up there in front of everyone and say, yeah, I was wrong, you know, but also underscoring that the fact that we learned something and not being so defensive.
Yeah, and I think part of the process that you implemented that helps is the fact that the cost wasn't high, that the creation of the test wasn't, 4 teams working for 6 months to do this test. I think the nimbleness you speak to is really imperative. I think in addition to being humble, I think part of that was the win for you, is to have it be so light, but potentially very powerful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can we can fast forward into the future and maybe go a little bit beyond us. So we've talked a little bit about the past, a little bit about your present. Where do you see product going in, let's call it the next 5 to 10 year window? So when the iPhone is 20 years old instead of 10 years old.
I'd say even sooner than that. I went to the Amazon, what is it called? The Amazon Style Store here in LA a couple months ago when they opened. And one of the things I noticed was, I mean, if you haven't gone, you should go. It's a technological marvel, right? And you very quickly you download the app, you go into the store, everything is there, just one size, one color. You scan it, and then you see all the size, color variants. You select that what you want, and you send it to your fitting room. The experience is amazing. The layout is amazing because they only have one of each item there. What I noticed is that the first 2 or 3 scans is a novelty, right? You've got your phone, you hold it up to the hanger, you scan the QR code, you put the hanger down, and then you start looking. And then I looked around and I noticed that everybody was just sort of standing there swiping and doing the same thing that my wife and I were doing. And then it got pretty cumbersome after that, right? Because you're there for 45 minutes, an hour, picking things up, scanning, swipe, putting things down, and it got a little cumbersome. So then I started thinking, how could the process improve, right? And the first thing that came to mind was the Alexa frames, where what if now within every Amazon store, you've got Whole Foods, you've got Amazon Fresh, you've got now Amazon Style, you walk in, and just like how you go, if you don't have a pair of Amazon frames, just like when you go to Disneyland and the 3D ride, they'll give you a pair of 3D glasses, right?
Yep.
You put that on, and then now that's your hands-free way of interacting with the store, right? You still maybe need to pick up the hanger, but then your frames will scan it, and then you got AR, where you then can swipe in the air. Of course, everyone's going to look a little silly, but everyone's doing the same thing in the store anyway. And then that changes the shopping experience completely, right? Now you're on this hands-free environment. It's a lot easier to use. It's a lot more user-friendly. And then how does that change the shopping environment for all Amazon stores? And then knowing Amazon as we all do they then start to license that technology out to other stores, right? Because the walk out tech, they're already testing that out with a huge grocery chain in London, I think it is. So from a product manager perspective, and that's why I said it's going to be a lot sooner than 5 to 10 years, is this type of engagement, this type of behavior is just starting to happen, right? And it's not out of the realm of possibility for Amazon to develop something like that because the technology is already there. So how does that change how your customers interact with your products and services and goods? So it's a long way of saying that the future is a lot closer than I think it is. And that as product managers, we always have to be thinking about that kind of environment, that kind of what if, because it very well could happen.
That's awesome. And something that comes straight to mind, not long after this experience would be, does the metaverse come to fruition? Is all of this shopping done from the rack with your, AR goggles right there from your living room? Will it be there, or will we continue to want to have some, you know, tactile experiences, actually wanting to see what it looks like on you before making the purchase, or, actually going to do some of these things, or will we start losing parts of that human experience?
Mm-hmm. Right. And, you know, like my son, he plays Roblox, and, all kids his age do. And I watch them play and I think about, yeah, how is that going to change? And you have a lot of companies. I think Gucci has like a Roblox island, and it's still, again, it's very much the expected ways into the metaverse. Oh, a company's going to do a branding. Oh, a company's going to have an experience, right? But then how do you, to your point, start to bridge those two? And I'm thinking, and also, with this sort of eco-mindedness, mindset. Like, for example, when you think about kids and you think about the metaverse and you think about clothes, I think about prom, right? Prom is still going to be physical, but prom will probably be a hybrid of some kind at some point. So how do you then make an experience, instead of everyone jumping into the car, going to the mall, walking, figure things out, right? What if you were to be able to have all these clothes very much Stitch Fix like? You have everything bundled and set up, and then you have this neighborhood prom try-on party, right? All your friends come over, the Stitch Fix truck comes over, you can try on all of your clothes. It's a lot more fuel efficient, because then you've got one vehicle coming to one place and everyone's coming. You don't have multiple boxes being sent back and forth, right? And there's just a whole lot of options when you have that. And that's like a combination of this sort of quote unquote metaverse. I'm going to try things on virtually. I think this looks good. I want to, try it on physically. Let's have this event, this very Instagrammable, TikTok, whatever it is, event that happens when the Stitch Fix, truck comes, and we have this prom, try on party on our street. So again, it's those types of things, right? That I think as product managers, you have to take little bits of everything, mash them up together like the secret Jamba Juice menu, and then see what happens, right? Don't just think, oh, we've got this experience, let's create a land within Roblox and hopefully people will come.
That's an amazing vision of proms in the future, Kevin. I can definitely see that happening. And as we wrap things up, have the last question for you here is, this is Product in LA. As part of the product community, love to hear your story, if there is one, of the most LA thing that's happened to you, product related or not.
I'm Ethan, as you know, I'm pretty boring. Like, I don't, and with my doctoral program, I don't do anything, So I study, I listen to podcasts, I don't watch any TV. I don't know I'm not connected to anything here in the LA scene, so I'm the wrong person to ask. Yeah.
So the least LA thing is that you listen to podcasts in place of movies and TV.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know anything about the current zeitgeist. I don't know anything about any TV show or celebrity or whatever. I'm very square.
That's awesome. Well, really appreciate your time, Kevin. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And I want to thank our sponsors again, the Product Managers Association Los Angeles. To learn more, please go to pma.la. I'd like to thank you again for joining us on this podcast, the first of the series, and I'd like to see you next time in Product in LA. Thank you so much.
Thank you.